You ever have that great new idea and you're like, okay, I have to, I'm gonna, I gotta find a way to get this together. Well, I found a way to get it together. So have repurposed the Brian Snow Show, and we now call it Snowman Welcomes. I'll have all the peripherals done for it because I plan to do one of these every day. So let's just get right into it. This fellow that I'm bringing in right now is a very dear friend. He's a fan of let me say this correctly, the national champion Michigan Wolverines. He's also a fan of the Buffalo Bills. God love you, Jim Machine Gun Kelly, Andre Reed, and others. And he's as old school as I am when it comes to sports. Please help me welcome my very first guest on this new series, Dr. Dunbar. And he's here with me right now. How are you, my friend?
Peace, Snowman. How you doing? Can you hear me?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, let me. Yeah, I got. Yeah, I'm a. Everyone, I'm a. I sound like a broken record. I'm a Buffalo native.
Yep.
Hence the little mini Bills flag back there. I'm a Michigan
Mhm.
alum. Go Blue, national champs. But hey, also, I went to a HBCU as like a stop between the two of those. So I went to Johnson C. Smith University. That's a small HBCU in the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association. Shout out to Marcus Williams. You never represent our alma mater, JCSU. You only represent Michigan. So Marcus, there. I represented our alma mater, JCSU.
What'd you study in college, man?
Hey, Snowman, I'm a STEM guy, so I've always been a little bit of a nerd. Me and my brother, shout out to my brother Amal, we grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek and
I
Transformers and
love it.
everything. So
I
yeah,
love it.
so undergrad, general biology,
Hmm.
grad school, pharmacology. So I did a doctorate in pharmacology.
Look, I too am a nerd. I've been called a nerd all my life. I married a nerd. She's getting ready to go after her doctorate.
Okay.
We just find things that we just geek out about, and we tell each other about it, and we just have so much fun. Here is why Dr. Dunbar is here. The last time I was on the stream with him, we got to talking sports and talking basketball. And the next thing I knew, Dr. Dunbar is pulling his book out with a whole bunch of cards in it.
Hey, Snowman, you know what? Um, that's around here somewhere. Don't ask me to go get it right now. No, I'll go get it if you
No,
want. But you know, it's funny. I actually in that era, that's when NFL Pro Set came out too,
yes.
and I had a whole shoebox of Pro Set cards too. I mean, I had the
Nice.
Jim Kelly, like our first year, we went to the Super Bowl. I had all those cards, man, from the early 1990s. But my mom,
Hmm.
her second marriage, and stuff gets lost in divorces, unfortunately. So I had some Pro Sets too.
Yeah, stuff gets lost in marriage. For me, 1998 from North Carolina to Chicago, which was a trek
Mm-hmm.
and a half. But I remember that. I remember that pro set. I had a ton of cards from not just football but basketball from the late 80s to early 90s, and dad
Mm-hmm.
used to get me baseball cards all the time, but then football showed up, so I got some football cards and some basketball cards also. Man, do you know how much sports has changed from then to now? It's crazy.
What does that mean? Kids don't collect cards anymore?
Well, not only that, they don't
I mean,
pay
they
attention to what got them to where they are in the first place.
okay. I was about to say
They,
they could just go do like this,
yep,
you know.
yep. That's all they do.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that they don't sit down. All right, let me get into this. I've had so many people that want to throw stats at me when it comes to certain players.
Mm-hmm.
And I just ask them one simple question. Did you watch the game? And then they freeze up. Well, that doesn't matter. It kind of matters if you watch the game and you learn from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had many people ask me about a certain basketball player, why I believe he does not deserve a Hall of Fame nod. And my answer is simple. Did he affect the game in any way? Did he change the game in any way?
Is it the basketball player I think you're talking about?
You know who it is.
The one whose son just got drafted onto the.
You know who it is. You've known me entirely too long to not know what's the player I'm talking about. And the player I'm talking about, I always say he's been gifted athletically.
Mm-hmm.
I am never going to deny that. I never would deny that. To say that would make me a hypocrite. I always said it's his basketball acumen that I question, and I continue to question it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So why do people bristle at me when I put it specifically in saying it's his basketball acumen that I question? Why do I get bristled at when I say that? Why do you think that is?
Well, Snowman, it's one of those things, man, where I saw my uncle last week, and I remember when this is an analogy. I remember when Snoop Dogg dropped "What's My Name,"
Yes.
and if you hadn't heard George Clinton and P Funk up to that point, you didn't know that Dre and Death Row borrowed the hook, and it sounds like the same thing when you listen to Atomic Dog. I remember my uncle said, "Oh, they just took the hook from Atomic Dog. That's all that is." And then when I finally heard it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what it is." So I'm saying that when you've had the chance to watch both the eras, you know the difference. And
Yeah.
I mean, but you still have guys from Gen X who will still argue you down about LeBron being the best. I don't know why, but
Thank you for saying that aloud.
For the younger guys, they did not get to see MJ or even some of the players that were considered average or role players in MJ's day play. I mean, I've got a buddy. Shout out to Abdul Gaines out there. He insists that Michael beat nothing but tomato cans in the finals because
I got the same argument.
Yeah, but it's hard to compare the eras. But my thing with LeBron is my biggest gripe is if you're gonna be the GOAT, if you're gonna be the alpha on your team, you got to have that killer instinct. You got to have that killer instinct. You got to show up ready to kill the other team every night. The way Michael did, the way Kobe did, the way Barkley did. Barkley doesn't have a chip, but Barkley was coming out to win every night.
Yes.
And your alpha needs to show that. And if they don't show that, then are they an alpha?
No, they're not. Because here's the biggest thing, one thereof. One of the biggest things for me is that even though MJ was an alpha and was ready to kill you when it was time, he also trusted his teammates to deliver the killing blow if necessary. John Paxson, Steve Kerr. Hell, John Paxson got him 2 of the 3 in the first three-peat. If y'all remember what happened in 1991, 10 points in the final 4 minutes in Game 5. 2 years later, he delivers the championship-winning shot in Phoenix, Arizona.
And he wasn't even the starter. B.J. Armstrong was the starter.
B.J. Armstrong supplanted him as a starter. B.J. Armstrong supplanted Pax as a starter, but then Paxson delivered the killing blow.
He was on the floor at crunch time.
With time running down.
Yep. Yeah, when there's an alpha, there's a distinct pecking order. You could see the other players literally following that guy. You could see the other defense adjusting to that guy. And that's another criticism of the King that I have is that, I mean, I know he's later in his career and he's trying to conserve his body.
Right.
But I think BGS and Black Uru corrected me on this in terms of playing on the low block. Okay, maybe he doesn't have to play on the low block like he's Patrick Ewing, but with his back to the basket, he could affect the game so much.
Yep.
At least going into the mid post, catching it, turning and doing something. But he's content to hang out there and just hoist up 3-pointers. And it's like, dude, you're the best athlete, even at 40.
Yes,
you're the best athlete on the floor. You could be affecting the game in a much more significant way, but you're only giving the Lakers 40% of what you could do by hanging out there and shooting 3-pointers all the time.
And that's, for me, that's a part of fear in not trusting your own game. You can say that about many an athlete today. I mean, they have the athletic skills, they got the training, they just don't trust it. And that has been my biggest gripe with LeBron. He doesn't trust his post game, because if he trusted his post game, he'd use it. He'd learn from his mistakes. He'd build on it. How do you think Michael developed that incredible fadeaway jump shot? How do you think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had a no dunk rule thrust in his face, developed that sky hook? They worked at it a lot.
They worked at it. Magic had a post game. Kobe had
Oh
a post
man,
game. Barkley had a post game.
Barkley had a post game.
Everybody above 6'6" had a post game of some sort.
Dominique Wilkins, and he was the human highlight film. He had a post game. Yep. Charles Barkley, as you mentioned, Charles Oakley, Scottie Pippen's predecessor. Charles Oakley had a post game, and then Pippen learned his post game from MJ. MJ developed his post game at North Carolina, but it really didn't come into focus until like 88, 89, when he knew going up against the Detroit Pistons, okay, I need some more weapons. And then Phil Jackson, who replaced Doug Collins as his coach, got him to trust his teammates.
Mm-hmm.
Being an alpha means you make the right decision for your team. And I'll bring up the two examples I said before about MJ trusting John Paxson, not once but twice in the first three-peat, and then trusting Steve Kerr with a 15-foot jump shot with the championship on the line. Not just the game, but the championship on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Pick and Roll himself, Karl Malone. Brian may be bigger than prime Karl Malone, and welcome Noir Truth to the discussion. He may be bigger, but hey, Karl Malone worked on his game at Louisiana Tech, and then when he got to the Jazz, and then John Stockton was there a year before Karl Malone, and they became one of the most dynamic duos ever. You know, the distinct statement that was made about Braun once upon a time was he can guard 1 through 5. Let's see, May 23rd, 1980, scene of the crime, the Spectrum, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I can tell you a person who did guard 1 through 5. His name, Magic Johnson. And he proved it as a 20-year-old rookie.
Mm-hmm. You know, what's funny, Snowman, is that I think, and what's frustrating as an NBA fan, well, a former NBA fan, because I have to be honest, I don't follow it like I used to. I mean, I wish I could go back to those days when there was just this aura around it, but maybe that's just an artifact of getting older as well.
Mm-hmm.
But LeBron did give us a taste of being a total player when they closed out the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yes.
And I mean, Scott Brooks, I think he made a boneheaded decision having James Harden guard LeBron,
which is a terrible mistake.
But I think when they closed that out in that game, LeBron showed he could shoot it, he played with his back to the basket, and he asserted himself.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so it's there. He can do it.
Mm-hmm.
He just, throughout his career, he's just chosen not to do it.
Exactly. He has chosen not to do it. Premier edition of Snowman Welcomes is here. If you like what you see and you hear, don't forget to subscribe to not only Big Discussion 76 Sports' channel, the Big Discussion 76 channel, but also this one. And if you also feel so inclined, drop a cash app to $Tallman Dr. K50 to help us grow this channel, this brand, and everything within. Here's the other thing. We talked about decision making. We saw a glimpse of what Bron can do if he ever developed his full game. But the Gen X's discussion is Bron had an era. No, it was supposed to go. The era was supposed to change from Kobe to LeBron, but it actually changed from Kobe to Stephen Curry. And the reason it went from Kobe to Stephen Curry is the one statement I have always said about Steph that had him change the game forever. Steph Curry took an anomaly and turned it into a weapon. That, of course, is the 3-point shot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Snowman, the other thing is if you go back, poor LeBron, that year when Kobe won his first title without Shaq,
Yep.
that was supposed to be Cleveland matching up with the Lakers in the finals, not
Yes.
Orlando.
Not Orlando.
But the media, the sports media, everybody was looking for that. Everybody was looking for Kobe versus LeBron because they had the little dolls.
Right.
They weren't Penny Hardaway dolls. They were like little Muppets. There was a Kobe Muppet and a LeBron Muppet.
There was
just LeBron and the Cavs didn't hold up their side of that.
Because they ran into Dwight Howard in Orlando.
Yeah,
but who the hell expected Dwight Howard and the Orlando Magic, which was you want to talk about a team that was being dragged to the finals? It was Dwight Howard and a bunch of people we didn't know, including former Golden State Warrior Markel Petrus.
Yeah.
Supplanting the team and the player that was supposed to get to the finals and give us this dream matchup that everyone had been looking for in Kobe versus LeBron. Dwight Howard intercepted that. The Dallas Mavericks intercepted that 2 years later. The Boston Celtics intercepted that in 2010 and never got the matchup everyone had wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it was a bit of Steph stepping up in the right moment, but also that space was kind of vacated by LeBron's inability to. Well, maybe you can give it to the front office too, because it's their job to put the right team around your star player.
Yes,
and that was. I mean, how many solid number twos did he have? He had Larry Hughes a couple of years, and then he had. I mean, who was on that team with him? He had
the most solid number. Number two he had was Daniel Gibson.
Boobie Gibson.
That was 2007, and that was 2007.
Right. That's right. That was the year they lost to San Antonio, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember Boobie Gibson went on his little run. He had some big 3-pointers that put them ahead. But other than that, he was on the team with Ilgauskas and Sideshow Bob and Antoine Jameson and a lot of third and fourth option guys.
Yeah, Drew Gooden was on that team.
Drew Gooden, that's right. So some of that falls at the feet of the general manager and ownership.
It absolutely does, for not equipping LeBron with the best options to start what should have been a long, extended run, and not just to the Eastern Conference Finals for the Cleveland Cavaliers either, because after they broke through Detroit in 2007 and got to the finals, and then the next year they won 66 games, but then got socked in the mouth by the Boston Celtics in 6 games. And you're wondering, okay, what's next? What is next? What do we have to do? Don't you think it rattled management so many times over and beyond that? That you're thinking, okay, we got this incredible talent. 2 prevalent questions come to mind. A, why hasn't he fully developed his game? And we're talking about 7 years into the league. And B, why doesn't he have the best talent around him to help him and his team and that forlorn franchise?
Yeah, so yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, basketball is still a team game. I mean, most of these are team games unless you're, I mean, I guess when you're a golfer, you also rely on your strength coach and your caddy. So all these are team games, but at the end of the day, he could never win it by himself. I mean, I think he could have done more to put himself into the GOAT argument, but yeah, management, they have to pick the right coach, and then they have to put the right pieces around him. MJ didn't win it by himself. Magic didn't win it by himself. Bird didn't win it by himself, but they at least established themselves as the dominants on their team.
They established themselves with organizations that wanted to win. Now we know nowadays it's all about money in professional sports. That's beyond obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But for sports fans like you and myself and some others that are tuning into this, I watched professional sports for a long time because I love the competition. I mean, hell, for years I wanted to see Jim Kelly and Joe Montana hook up in the Super Bowl, but then Leonard Marshall took that dream away with one solid hit, and it wound up being the
Yeah.
Bills and the Giants, which was a great Super. Don't get it twisted. The Bills and the Giants produced a great Super Bowl. That NFC Championship in 1990 made me sad, but it also made me proud of coaches like Bill Walsh and Bill Parcells and Marv Levy and the guys that actually stuck to their old school values in wanting to win more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, Snowman, before we keep going on with football, it looks like we've switched tracks here. I just want to say on the basketball, I don't know if you've ever seen the channel. There's a channel called Stun and Growth. Have you seen him?
No, I haven't.
Okay, look up Stun and Growth because he is a library. JC, I think it's JC. He is a library of all the players who we thought were going to be great but never made it. Some of them made it to the league. Some of them washed out in high school. Some of them washed out in college. Some of them were great college players. But there are so many guys. When you look at the NBA, we're looking at the guys who made it.
Yeah.
Okay? And I was thinking about the riddle.
And there's a litany of guys who didn't make it. There's a litany of guys who fizzled out,
who didn't make it. And I was thinking, I just published a book, by the way. Before we finish up, if I could show it, that'd be cool. But one of the things I was told when I was younger, I remember my uncle and my dad telling me Michael Jordan is not the best player on the planet Earth. Okay. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, well, he's the one that made it. He's the one that stayed healthy, who stayed off the streets, who did his schoolwork, who didn't get into a domestic dispute with his girlfriend.
Right.
He's the one who made it. But there were so many other guys who got killed, guys who got incarcerated, guys who didn't listen to their coaches, guys who got taken early by crime. Okay. There's so many other guys who didn't make it for whatever reason.
Len Bias.
The
biggest example that comes to mind is Len Bias.
Yep, Lenny Bias. Yeah, Lenny Bias, Benji Wilson. Chris Washburn from that notorious class of '86.
Yes.
Roy Tarpley.
Roy Tarpley, yes.
So many guys who just pissed it away.
And you're right. I mean, Len Bias was the #1 overall pick by the Boston Celtics. And what happened?
Yep.
It went up his nose and out he went.
And that's something my Uncle Jeff, shout out to my Uncle Jeff, that's what he told me, was that was going to be the continuation of the Celtics dynasty. If they drafted him, Bird probably plays a little bit longer. All those guys probably played a little bit longer because they could have shifted the load to the young Colt.
Len Bias.
Yeah.
And one player that was on the Celtics at that time, Reggie Lewis.
So that you would have had a younger nucleus of Lenny Bias, Reggie Lewis, and Brian Shaw.
And boom.
And
Kevin Gamble.
Kevin Gamble.
Kevin Gamble was there. D. Brown was there.
D. Brown.
That was the next dynasty because McHale was on his way out. You know, and that's just purely because of age and when they played and how long they played.
You can't play forever.
We know what happened to Larry Bird. Back injuries curtailed his career.
Yeah.
And after he played with the Dream Team, he hung it up. Kevin McHale was coming down to the end of his career. Robert Parrish coming down to the end of his. Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge. That nucleus was getting old, and it was time to replace them, which is what Red Auerbach and company was in the process of doing. But after Lenny Bias died, there was an aura. Don't you feel there was an aura that was taken away from the Celtics after Lenny Bias died?
I mean, how do you come back from that? I mean, how often does a Lenny Bias come around?
Right.
I mean, you're talking about a guy in college who was not backing down from Michael, who was arguably better than Michael. I mean, that he was a once in a lifetime player, and and yeah, and they needed him at that right time to keep it going. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was an unlucky four-leaf clover for them.
Yeah. And I hated seeing it. As much as a fan, I despise the Celtics. I love the way they were put together and how that team was built. When I first started watching basketball in 1980, started hearing about them drafting Larry Bird and then snatching Kevin McHale. And of course, at the time, a fellow there was uh, Cedric
Cornbread,
Maxwell.
cornbread. Yep.
Cedric Cornbread. You knew where I was going. Cedric Cornbread.
Well, hold on,
Maxwell.
hold on, Snowman. So a quick thing. I started, unfortunately, I started watching late. I started watching as Michael was on his way up. So I missed, man, I missed that the entire early 80s, both the
Oh
NBA
man.
and college. I missed all of that due to circumstance. I won't
That's
get into
fine.
that now. But as I watched the documentaries, that's when I learned about Cornbread Maxwell. And
Yep.
and that's funny because they all thought when Bird came in there, yeah, we're gonna teach this white boy something. And that, Cornbread said,
And Larry Bird said, "What? Teach what?"
yeah, he kept getting a shot off. He kept making his shots. He proved to them that he could play. So as much as and it was racial in the 80s because
Oh yeah.
even though Boston had all those black players, Boston, just like Duke, was seen as a white team. And
Yes.
Larry Bird was the face of that team. But Larry Bird, when you go back and you look at all the footage, you realize, wow, Duke, he had game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And like I said, look at the way the Celtics were built through that time with Bill Russell. We don't have to even mention Bill Russell. I mean, hell, his numbers retired throughout the NBA and the impact he had, not just on the NBA, but on the city of Boston, because there was a lot of racial tension in that city. And here you have Bill Russell being drafted by the Celtics and him being very apprehensive to playing for the Boston Celtics. But then he gave him 11 championships. The last one was as a player coach in the Forum in 1969, and them being revered by the Celtics and by the city of Boston. Absolutely revered. So he turned around a lot of things being in Boston. Like I said, I started watching basketball in 1980, and that's college and pro. Boy, some of the players within that time, and Noir True just mentioned one, Alex English, 6'7" sharpshooting forward out of South Carolina. It took me a while to realize that Cornbread Maxwell didn't play at a big school. He played at the University of Charlotte. He played at UNC Charlotte. Dennis Johnson out of Pepperdine. Brigham Young's Danny Ainge.
Jay.
I mean, who the hell knew what Centenary College was until Robert Parrish showed up?
Yep. I think the X-Man played at a small school too.
Wichita State.
Yep.
Wichita State.
Wheat Shockers. Yep.
Yep. The X-Man, Xavier McDaniel. We all know Charles Barkley from Auburn. But who knew Reggie Lewis out of Northeastern?
Mm-hmm.
Out of Northeastern University.
Wow. And Scotty went to Central Arkansas.
Yep.
These
small college kids, these small college players that come into the NBA just have just as big an impact as the major players do.
Yeah, but you also gotta keep in mind that was also pre AAU.
Yeah,
so I imagine everything's very separated now. So I imagine it'd be harder for those guys to get into that upper tier now with the AAU.
Has AAU ruined basketball? I'm just gonna go ahead and flat ask the question. In your eyes, you think AAU and all that it's produced ruined basketball?
Well, I'm going to defer to the master teacher on this one.
Okay.
I was just talking with one of the players I interviewed for my book last week. He's a coach. He encourages his players to go out in the summer and play AAU. He says, I have you most of the year. Go and play, go and travel. but I know BGS was of the opinion that his son played AAU.
Mhm.
They play too many games. They don't work on skills enough.
Yes,
So,
and those are my
so
thoughts.
yeah, I'm going to defer to that. And I think there's footage of Calipari talking about some of his most recent kids at Kentucky, saying the same thing, that I gotta teach them how to take a good shot. I gotta teach them how to work the ball. I gotta teach them
Right.
how to run an offense, because when they
You
come
gotta
to me,
teach
they
them
don't know how to do it.
you gotta teach them team concepts.
Yeah,
You gotta teach them team concepts, and Calipari said it to me. I had the pleasure of meeting John Calipari. I had the
nice,
pleasure of meeting Mike Krzyzewski,
nice.
you know, when I was covering, high school games in Chicago. They said the exact same thing. That's why, and when the NIL era happened with basketball a few years ago, Roy Williams said bye-bye, Mike Krzyzewski said adios, and some of these old school coaches that saw the handwriting on the wall, Nick
Yeah,
Saban, hello, saw
yeah,
the handwriting on the wall when it comes
yeah,
to the NIL era, said, you know what, I'm not dealing with this because Pandora's box is now wide open.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And especially with basketball, because I've seen a few AAU games in Chicago. I do not want any part of that. As a broadcaster, I want no parts of that. I had to deal with it with travel baseball, and that's as far as it got for me.
Hmm. Yeah. No, Nowhere Truth said that Kobe said the same thing about the players
Yes.
that were coming into the league.
Hmm. The sense of entitlement is ferocious because they feel that just because they made it, they have to stop working on their skills. They have to stop being team players. They have to stop being members of a team. They have to stop being coached. That gets me more than anything else. When they get the sense of entitlement that they made it to the NBA, having not played the full 4 years in college, having played nothing but AAU most of their lives, when they make it to the league and they get drafted, that they have to stop working. And because they made it to the league, they get this also the second sense of entitlement that they can't be cut from a team.
Yeah. I think those are things that probably made Kobe and Garnett unique,
Mm-hmm.
and that's that they got in there and they didn't squander it.
Nope. They worked even harder.
They worked even harder. And I think yeah, Garnett, I think he went in, they had a veteran group there too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, aside from Christian saw him as a threat.
Yeah.
Christian Laettner, everybody, but I
Mm-hmm.
think yeah, he had the advantage of going into a veteran group, and Kobe just wanted it that bad. He didn't want to go to the nightclub.
No. He went to the gym. He
He
wanted
went to
to
the gym.
play. He wanted
Yeah.
to be the absolute best. That's why
Okay.
Michael took him as a mentor. He worked harder than any and every. Kobe had Michael's mentality, or the old school mentality of I want to win basketball games and I want to win championships and help my team win championships. I don't want to be out in the nightclub. I don't want to experience the nightlife. You know, someone that I think of right now, and he just popped in my head that really squandered an opportunity.
Who's that?
Carmelo Anthony.
Oh, Carmelo. Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony.
Same draft class as LeBron and D Wade.
Same class.
Should have had a title. Should have had at least one.
At least one. But he squandered it doing two things: getting mad at George Karl, who told the truth about him, and then running to New York thinking New York was going to produce a title when they did not have the correct pieces, coach included, in place. That's what bothers me about some of these young kids now when they have the truth told to them. Not just about their game, but about their lives. They are so thin-skinned that they don't know how to handle it. What did Carmelo do? He ran from Denver to New York when George Karl called him out.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best high school players I ever saw play, the late great Moses Malone,
Yeah, Moses.
out of Petersburg High School in Virginia. Darryl Dawkins, same high school, same situation. They didn't squander an opportunity when they got drafted. They worked harder.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of
Well,
these kids have to learn. They got to work harder.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was the golden age, man. That was the golden age. But Snowman, I
Is
want to
it?
say, I didn't mean to derail us back to basketball.
No,
But hey,
yeah.
where we go next? You just mentioned Coach Cal. Man, you need to make a John Chaney drop. Remember when he wanted to
Way
kill
ahead
Coach
of you.
Cal?
I already got the wheels in
I'm
my
gonna
head
kick
on where
your
to get it.
ass. I'm gonna kick your ass. I'll
I
kill you.
gotta get it. I gotta get it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna have it, and I'm gonna have it in my sound file.
You talk to those referees the entire game. You don't need
Yep.
that edge.
Yep. Oh
Aaron,
God.
Aaron McKee,
John
and Eddie
Chaney.
George had no, not Eddie George, Eddie. Oh, geez, the one for the Lakers. Eddie. Who's the one
Eddie
with
Jones.
Eddie Jones? Yeah, Eddie
Eddie
Jones.
Jones.
Those were Temple Owls. Eddie Jones and Aaron McKee. They were in there with their shirts off. They had to restrain Chaney because he was about to go up to the podium and knock out John Calipari.
Knock out Calipari.
So I just want to say, man, you need to make a drop.
Man, you said you said John Chaney.
I'm gonna kick
You
your ass.
want to know a couple of my other favorite old school college coaches?
Who's that?
One of them, Jerry Tarkanian.
Okay.
Tark the Shark.
Okay. Yep.
I got a lot of old Running Rebels games on my computer because I geeked out when I found them in the late 80s because my first favorite player ever for UNLV was Freddie Banks.
Okay.
Sharpshooting guard.
Now was that one of Tark's players?
Yes.
Because I didn't realize, again, I started watching late that he had been there for a while setting that thing up, trying to win. And he let a couple of checkered players in his program, like Lloyd Daniels, and which he got criticized for because he took a lot of JUCOs.
Yes,
and
gave him a chance.
But he eventually won one.
1990.
Did you see Winning Time? I mean, they took it off after one. Did you believe any of it? Did you think any of that was true? Because the way they depicted it, the mob was really controlling whether or not he left or went. You're shaking your head.
I ain't buying it.
No,
I ain't buying it. They wanted him out. The NCAA wanted him out after that dominant performance in 1990, and then the royal screw job in Indianapolis in 1991. Because had the referees let that game play out the way it was supposed to play out, we were looking at back-to-back champs for Nevada, Las Vegas.
Okay,
but they wanted Duke to win. They wanted Christian Laettner to win. And I don't need to explain the undertones with that. The most popular team in the country at that time, the Nevada, Las Vegas Running Rebels, running into the Duke Blue Devils, who had more than 3 losses that year. Talking about April of 1991 in Indianapolis. You know how much money would have changed hands if Nevada, Las Vegas would have completed the job and ran the table? Because they were undefeated till they lost to Duke.
They lost to Duke.
They were undefeated until they lost to Duke. Hell, they brought a ton of money in. They were in Las Vegas. If that tells you anything, they were in Las Vegas. And Tarkanian was not going to originally take the job because he was coaching at Fresno State. He was not going to take the job at UNLV. Like, nope, I'm staying in Central California. But they convinced him and his wife to take a shot at Nevada, Las Vegas, and he had been building that thing for a while. His son was a starting point guard for them in '83, Danny Tarkanian.
Wow.
Danny Tarkanian was one of the starters when they blew the doors off the, at the time, brand new Thomas and Mack Center. And they played a night game at the Thomas and Mack Center with 18,000 people in tow. Who did they face? Patrick Ewing in Georgetown. I remember because I got granted a chance to stay up late and watch it on CBS. I had a chance to watch it on CBS with Gary Bender calling the action. But that really started UNLV on their way. It took them a while to get to 87 until when they got Freddie Banks and John Flowers and those guys. Then they got to New Orleans and ran into Bobby Knight. They ran into Bobby Knight, Keith Smart, and the Indiana Hoosiers. But Tark wasn't even supposed to be in Vegas. He wasn't even supposed to coach the Running Rebels. He didn't want to.
Okay.
He didn't want to. And I'm not buying that the mob was controlling things. Look, until you are there, until you watch the games and the stories beyond that, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype.
Okay.
I've always stuck to that.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Snowman. Did you ever watch in the early, I was in grad school when this show only lasted one season because I think the NFL didn't like it what they were depicting. Did you ever watch Playmakers?
Yes.
Oh man, we were my entire research, man. We were locked into that show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then it was gone. It was gone.
Lasted only 1 year.
Because the NFL didn't like.
Nope.
That's the story. They didn't like the way they were depicting the league.
They were infringing on the NFL product, number one. And number two, they were depicting the players in a horrible way. I definitely remember that show. There was another show that was on HBO, First and 10. Same thing. Now that lasted 5 years because they didn't infringe on the NFL, one, and two, they just, told the stories in a more real fashion, but they got chased off too. They got chased off too. If it wasn't about, we're talking about the early 80s, if it wasn't about Inside the NFL, which at the time was on HBO, then the NFL said, nah, we can't have that anywhere close to us.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have that anywhere close to us.
Okay. Okay.
But I remember that show, The Playmakers. I remember that.
Okay. Hey, for you young folks out there, I mean, you could probably download it somewhere. There's only one season because they took it off. But if you ever get a chance to watch Playmakers, yeah, I think it was a depiction of some of the underhanded things that go on in the NFL. Okay,
And
but
the NFL didn't like that.
Yeah,
the NFL didn't like that because they knew. Look, they knew they were being controlled anyway. Let's be totally real. They knew they had a hand pushing them anyway. They had a hand pushing them, and then there was a lot of money changing hands, which explains professional sports now, which explains the NBA, especially now. I mean, that doggone NBA Cup, good Lord.
Oh, is that the in-season tournament?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I heard about it. I can't say it. Hey, I didn't watch any of that.
Good. I didn't either.
But the Lakers won that, right?
Mm-hmm. One, okay. I was in the hospital, and two, I just didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
What's it supposed to prove? I thought the goal was to play in June, not December.
Well, Snowman, I think one of the challenges the NBA is facing right now is just keeping it fresh, keeping it exciting, keeping it, like the dunk contest. The way it was in its prime was good, but eventually, I guess things go stale sometimes, and so maybe the play-in, the in-season tournament is a way to add a new wrinkle to their product.
And I guess the play-in's the same way. The play-in tournament, when you make it to April and you're not one of the top 8, but you're like 9 and 10, and you still get to extend your season by what, 2 games?
Mm-hmm. I don't think they should have ever gone to 7 games in the first round. I think they should have kept it at 5.
They should have kept it at. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
it should have remained a 5-game series.
Yeah,
it should have remained a 5-game series. It's no business in 2003 going to 7 games. What for? What for? They had no reason to do that whatsoever. Another thing that I already said, they should not have gone to 10 teams. They should not have gone 7 through 10, compete in a play-in tournament. You should go 1 through 8. If you're not 1 through 8, you're not good enough. Come back next year. You don't succeed in getting to be one of the top 8, try again. You can't beat the team in 5 games in the first round. Sorry, you're lost.
I mean, I think some sports you're justified in expanding the field, like college football.
Mm-hmm.
You're justified in going to 12 teams, but for the NBA, you were at 16 teams. That was fine. At some point, I think the NCAA tournament that could probably get too big at some point
Oh, it's
because
gonna get
because because
it's going to get too big. It's
if
going
everybody
it's
if
at
everybody can get
68
in, then
right
what's the
now.
point? Say what?
It's at 68 right now. That's
Yeah,
too much.
that's too much. Yeah.
If you're not one of the 64 best teams to play in the tournament, then oh well. That's how I was taught by my dad. If you're not good enough to take the one job you want, oh well, shape it up and try again. But that old school mentality way of thinking, unfortunately, in my eyes, has gone by the wayside. And a lot of people, a lot of fans especially, are suffering because of it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are suffering because of it. We're going to get on out of here for this premiere edition of Snowman Welcomes. I want to thank my buddy Dr. Dunbar for dropping by. I truly, truly appreciate you, man.
Okay, Snowman. Yeah, we got to do it again.
We will. We definitely will. And next time you got to break that book out, because I want to try to get some more alums of some of the players you were mentioning.
Oh,
part
my
was
trading
fun.
cards.
Yes.
Okay.
That part was fun. We'll do it again, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
All right, take care, Snowman.
Take care, everybody.
Peace.